Hello, I'm back. This is our 12th week, and the main theme has to do with some of the, one might say, dark sides of the productivity paradox. And you'll be watching the Brynjolfsson lecture and also one by one of my former colleagues, Richard Florida, whose specialty is exactly what he's talking about. So I think you'll find it interesting. I'm going to concentrate in the next few minutes only on really two matters. One of them is the Berkman report, which is a really interesting report that many of you might not know about, produced by the Berkman Center at Harvard. I'm going to show you three quick examples from the Berkman report, and then also to say a few words about I guess you might say headlines in terms of evaluating what to do about cost displacement. Here's the first one I want you to see. This is on page 12 of the report, and it shows ways of describing the comparisons. This is OECD 30 countries. That's Office of Economic Cooperation and Development. And those 30 countries are quite interesting. They include a lot of developed countries, quite a few less developed countries, all of them considerably large countries. Japan is in it, Mexico is in it, Chile is in it, and Israel. A few other countries have been added recently, Chile and Israel most notably. So this gives you an idea of the way it is describes these comparisons. If you're in the green, that is, if the United States is in full green, that for median upload speed test, they're fifth among those 30 countries. So these are pretty interesting if you're not used to seeing this kind of data, and notice the different kinds of penetration metrics, speed metrics, and price metrics. I think that's pretty interesting. Now I'm going to show you another one. This one is a ranking by countries on various penetration measures. And again, the green ones, the ones up at the top there, they're the ones that come out pretty high on all the penetration measures, and penetration per 100, household penetration, etc. So those are, again, interesting numbers, and the United States, something like that. And so it's pretty easy to determine just where we stand, and I think this scheme is one that's quite interesting. Let me just show you one more. This is one that if you haven't seen this kind of relationship before, it makes common sense, but it's interesting, and it's interesting because of that. This has to do with the number of providers in an area versus the price paid, and as you would suspect, the more the providers, the lower the price. In this case, when you have one provider, it's an average of $44 for monthly subscription, and when you have four or more, it's $32. So that's a difference of almost 40%. Very interesting numbers. It matches what we would think. That's from a Pew study of 4 years ago. Still interesting, though, and it is the last thing I want to discuss is just, you might say, some headlines about cost displacement. The Gini coefficient, which is one of the statistics you may have heard of, is used by everybody, really, World Bank, UN, everybody. It's a measure of the difference between the rich and the poor, that is the relative income dispersion. And the United States is very high on that. High is bad in terms of wealth distribution. The difference between the upper quintile and the lower quintile in the United States is considerably higher than any other developed country. And so that's an issue. When you start saving people's jobs by automation, that's an issue to consider. The cui bono is a term in Latin. It means for whose benefit. And that's the question, the public policy question that you also have to consider, whether you're talking about agriculture, education, or in this case, just generally automation. The alternative employment issue, which we've talked about in class quite a bit, the way that people can find alternative jobs when theirs is displaced is a challenge, because the next one on there, retraining challenges, it looks like from the data we've looked at in the course, early in the course, that the lower the income level of a person, the less able they are on a per capita basis to get training using automated methods. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means the cost per trainee is higher. So that's another issue to consider. And finally, the long-term effects. What sort of long-term effects might there be? Brynjolfsson doesn't seem to have a clue about that, even though he says he thinks everything will be okay. And in our earlier Brynjolfsson lecture, he and his co-lecturer were also hopeful that things would be okay. But as a student of this, I think you have to ask yourself what kind of long-term effects might happen in terms of cost displacement due to automation. That's it. Hope you have a good week in this material. Hope you enjoy it.